Volkswagen had already announced drastic cost and job cuts.
Inventory rising on brand new Volkswagens are a sure sign that less people are buying them. They're all caught up, inventories filling the lots. And now what happens?
According to the General Works Council, Volkswagen is planning to close at least 3 plants in the country and cut tens of thousands of jobs in the process.
Cost-cutting measures they are going to roll out. And John, they are absolutely huge. We're talking about
Volkswagen is going to close at least 3 plants in Germany, shrink its manufacturing base in Europe, and lay off tens of thousands of workers.
We're talking about cost savings of about 4 billion euros. We're talking about blanket cuts of pay of workers at Volkswagen by 10% across the board.
The Chinese OEMs are taking a lot of market share.
We're also talking about the closing of 3 factories. That is what they plan to do at the management level. This is a company that has never in its history once closed a factory in Europe.
This here is part of a problem for Volkswagen, as is this vehicle right here. We're looking at a brand new Volkswagen ID4, as you'll notice right there, and we'll talk about how that's impacting the brand. For the last number of weeks and months, Volkswagen's been building inventory. There were shortages from every single manufacturer during, obviously, the last couple of years, but now Volkswagen, along with many other manufacturers, have started catching up. Unfortunately, inflation has taken the toll on people, and less people are buying these days with higher interest rates, higher costs of inflation, and higher cost of living, and sadly, even the higher cost of a lot of these base MSRPs. And part of an issue is Volkswagen, and a lot of their product line is just simply a little bit less competitive. Unfortunately, Volkswagen, the largest European manufacturer, today is struggling and facing some serious challenges as a lot of plants are looking at shutting down, workers are getting laid off, and who's left standing will be likely receiving a 10, 12, 18% pay cut.
The ones that will keep their job might see cuts up to 18% in their salary. However, negotiations are continuing between the group and the IG Metall trade union.
Worker unions are threatening for a strike because word has it now that Volkswagen is looking at chopping drastic amounts of workers, as well as closing 3 major plants and allegedly breaking on a 30-year Worker Employment Protection Act, leaving likely many workers scrambling for employment. Now, this would be the first time in 87 years that Volkswagen had to consider closing down plants, but it's clear, it's a strong indication that things are not well in the backyard of Volkswagen and they're having to clean up their mess. And what's going on with the Volkswagen ID4 that I showed you earlier, and how does that actually impact the bottom line of Volkswagen, the largest European car manufacturer? With the sudden slump in sales of EVs in Europe down to a tune of about 37%, it's clear Volkswagen's seeing the writing on the wall. Electric vehicles are not as popular as they were hoping to be, and Volkswagen has gotten way ahead of the game, invested a lot of extra money in development and research to produce electric vehicles, i.e. like the ID4, for example, and now it's backfiring because sales are drastically dropping. Go to China, and Volkswagen's looking at trimming global costs down as at least 20% just to salvage the company. And unfortunately, they're putting less into their internal combustion vehicles, hence becoming less competitive and trying to transition more to electric vehicles. And they're losing a lot of their sales on their ICE vehicles simply because of this transition, this business model. And while these full-size vehicles, like we're looking at the Atlas, definitely like the looks of the packaging of it. I like the style of it. The LEDs, the interior, the fit and finish absolutely looks great on this. I actually drove one of these recently and I like the way it finishes up. The interior is actually quite nice on it as well, and I like the way it's finished. But the problem is, under the hood of these vehicles, they're actually putting a turbocharged 4-cylinder in there instead of what you should have, which is at least a V6 engine to move this thing along. This is one of the largest mid-size to full-size SUVs on the market, and they go and put the EA888 engine in there. They also have the little Volkswagen Tios. Some people love these, but there's been some quality challenges there as well. Obviously, even storage lots full of graveyard specials right here, Volkswagens that just are not selling, are parked here to go away. And it's clear that cost cuttings are kicking into high gear. Even Volkswagen is coming out with that new Scout pickup truck, which seems to be very popular, and it should have been sold through the dealer network here in North America, but it looks like they want to sell it directly to the consumer and bypass the dealer market altogether and save additional costs. Well, that's rubbing all of the dealers the wrong way. And while it appears that Volkswagen sales have gone down about 7% in this third quarter, it does in fact, a lot of their sales are coming from internal combustion vehicles like this right here, and their ID4 not as much. Unfortunately, they're also competing in the Chinese markets where electrification is done at a much lower price point. And a lot of the German manufacturers and European manufacturers that are creating vehicles for China, which is one of the largest markets on the planet, are competing with vehicles and manufacturing procedures that are much more cost effective and leave manufacturers like Volkswagen in the lurch, uncompetitive, highly priced, and it leaves customers and buyers looking for something else that's more affordable. And Volkswagen and many of the other German manufacturers, just like Mercedes-Benz, just like Porsche and Audi, and as well just like Stellantis, means that a lot of these manufacturers are struggling for sales in those electrified markets, on the verge of, as we're starting to see this decline and slow down in the market overall. Even the Ford CEO has been driving around in a Chinese manufactured electric vehicle where Ford hosts some of the sales of their product and are finding that they're not being competitive. The Chinese market is too strong. The cost effectiveness of their manufacturing is such in that they're hard to ignore. And a lot of these manufacturers like Volkswagen are struggling getting their vehicles out the door. Whether internal combustion vehicles like this are selling, like I said, a lot of their EV products are not. And unfortunately, like many manufacturers, Volkswagen's now utilizing the catalyst that is the internal combustion engine like these, and they're selling these at an increased price. The MSRPs continue to rise on vehicles that a lot of customers just don't find the value in, and they're increasing the prices of these vehicles to pay for the manufacturing, the research and development of a lot of their electric vehicles that are coming out, the ID.4, for example. And because a lot of manufacturers are utilizing this now, everybody's having to switch over to electric vehicles. It means a lot of these internal combustion vehicles will become obsolete. Now, granted, the North American market seems to be slightly behind the European market, but the Euros are pushing hard, and these global sales are bringing Volkswagen like this to their knees. And now Volkswagen, unfortunately, is seeing about a $4 billion loss that they're trying to recuperate from last year this time. So it's clear that the sales are down, product line are down. They're trying to conserve their costs and their budget for spending as well. Unfortunately, they're finding themselves having to cut costs just to continue research and development to become competitive in this new electric market. Now, unfortunately, Volkswagen's having to close some plants. They haven't done that in 87 years. We're talking about at least 3 plants, looking at chopping tens of thousands of workers, of that almost 300,000 workers that work for Volkswagen. On top of that, those that are sticking around may see wage increase cuts of about 10%. And on top of that, even those that are still sticking around may in fact see a couple of wage freezes for the next 2025-26 years, which means that clearly the company's in damage control mode and there's no end in sight. Closing their doors, laying off workers, and it's all over but the crying. So does it seem like something that Volkswagen can dig themselves out of this hole? Time will tell. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop me a line and we'll talk more about it. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.